and welcome to the Finance Quarter, where today I'm at the Australian School of Business at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. The reason I'm here is that it seems to me there are some big lessons for managers in the political execution of Kevin Rudd. Mr Rudd's management style alienated both colleagues and staff to the point where when the first opportunity to get rid of him presented itself, it was swiftly taken. Good management is crucial to the success of any business, and a person who knows what makes a good manager is the Australian School of Business's Dr Loretta O'Donnell. Loretta, in the last few weeks we've heard a lot about Kevin Rudd's management style, things like having a short temper, abusing staff, not having a strategy, things like that. In the business world, what sort of damage do those sort of qualities coming from a manager do?
It's the opposite of what contemporary organisations typically need. As we move more and more into a knowledge economy where the value of human capital becomes an increasingly important strategic asset within an organisation, it's the ideas of individuals which really make a difference in terms of how value is created in organisations. And it's also, particularly in some organisations such as pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, IT, where people really are the asset, it's not just the ideas and the work that they do, but it's their discretionary work effort. It's the work they put in above and beyond what's required of them that can really make a difference as to whether an organisation succeeds in a competitive market or not.
How important is it for managers to delegate?
You can delegate as a manager if the people you're delegating to have been trained and developed, have the right resources, have the right computer technology, have the right training, have the right networks around them, and they're able to do the job that you ask of them. If people don't have the training or they've been recruited at the wrong level, you're asking the impossible of them. So assuming that all the human capital systems are in place, they've been recruited the right way, they've been trained and developed, they're remunerated accordingly, then it is possible to delegate to an appropriate level. So it's not a blanket yes or no, it's assuming all the human capital systems are in place.
How important is it for managers to be liked by their staff rather than just respected?
I would say that depends on the environment in which you're operating. In some industries where it's a very tough professional environment, respect, I would suggest, sometimes is enough. In other organisations with other missions and other visions which they're accomplishing, being liked does help. But it really comes down to the team, the employees, and whether they're prepared to give that discretionary work effort, that effort above and beyond the standard that's required of them. For some, that will mean they prefer to have a closer one-on-one relationship with their supervisor or boss. For others, they just want to get the job done, and that's less important to them. So I would say that depends on the context in which you're operating.
Dr Loretta O'Donnell, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
A growing sector of the economy where good management skills is an enormous advantage is franchising. If you can believe the glossy brochures, owning a franchise is a way for small business people to get the income and the lifestyle they've always wanted. But unfortunately, a significant proportion of franchisees are finding out that's far from the case.
Hi, can I help you there?
Trevor Banks operates the Wendy's ice cream franchise at Mount Druitt in Sydney's west. It hasn't turned out as he'd hoped.
We're not getting that national leverage that we're promised when we purchase stores. We're not getting that price advantage for our purchase of equipment or food or our cost of goods.
Trevor Banks believes the high price of the materials he's forced to source from Wendy's is a big barrier to his franchise's success.
It makes it very, very difficult to be able to charge a retail price that is fair to the customers and to our clientele, but also to maintain a profit margin that we require in order to pay the rents and to pay our overhead costs, wages, etc.
Talia Strickland was a Wendy's franchise owner at Nepean, not far from Mount Druitt.
They sold me a store that they know is never going to make a profit.
Talia Strickland had hoped her Wendy's franchise would secure her financial future. Instead, it was a bruising experience which has left her heavily in debt.
They review you. I got 100%, I got 90%. They came out and mystery shopped my girls. They got 100% and 90%. So I was doing everything in their system to do better than the last owners, and my store still wasn't making the money.
Their claims Wendy's private equity owners categorically reject, insisting it's in no one's interest for franchisees to fail.
We work very hard and very closely with those who are not doing so well to try and help improve their business. But, you know, human nature being what it is, there'll always be some people that choose to blame us for their problems rather than trying to fix it.
Franchising is a $130 billion a year industry which employs around 400,000 people. Many of the most popular brands in Australia are delivered through franchises. However, according to a study by Griffith University in Queensland, the experiences of Talia Strickland and Trevor Banks are typical of a significant level of disenchantment in the sector. Griffith University found 50% of franchisees believe they're not being given accurate information by their franchisors. 30% say they can't rely on the franchisor to keep promises. 28% say they didn't trust their franchisor to be honest, while on the other side of the fence, 30% of franchisors said they didn't trust their franchisees.
We'll need to follow up these people here who haven't responded yet.
Report author Professor Laurel Fraser believes much of the tension between franchisors and franchisees is a result of franchisees not fully understanding what they've signed up for.
The problem with most first-time franchisees is they've previously been employed, and this is probably the first time they've entered business, so they don't have a lot of business skills or business acumen.
Professor Fraser says this inexperience is often reflected in a lack of proper due diligence when people are considering buying a franchise.
In our survey, we found that 50% of franchisees admitted that they relied on their gut feeling when making a decision about entering a franchise. And not surprisingly, a similar proportion said that that their expectations had not matched reality.
In the book world, Dymocks is Australia's biggest franchised operation. Lynn Allister owns the store at Rouse Hill in Sydney's northwest. She believes her good experience of franchising has been helped by realistic expectations.
You need to be aware that they're not responsible for guaranteeing your sales. They're not going to manage the business for you, and you need to take that on board and know up front. We did know that, so I suppose we feel our expectations were in line with what we received.
I would have liked to get what I paid for, and I think that's all any of us want, is to receive what we paid for and what we were promised.
In preparing that report on franchising, it struck me that one of the reasons many franchisees fail is that they don't do enough research before they buy. In business jargon, it's known as due diligence, and the lack of it can be the difference between owning a successful business or going broke. So what does good due diligence look like? Well, a person who knows is Deloitte's expert on small and family business, Jackie Franco. Jackie, what's the importance of doing proper research before you buy a business?
Andrew, I believe peace of mind. This is actually one of the biggest decisions you'll make in your life, and you want to get it right. So I think the key thing is to get the right professional advice as soon as possible when you're considering buying a business.
I get the impression that many of the problems that small businesses encounter are because of a lack of proper research before they bought the business. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, look, absolutely. I think people get caught up in the hype of buying a business. They don't do adequate research at all. In fact, one of the key things is cash flow. Cash is king, we all know that. A lot of people underestimate the value of understanding the cash flows in the business. I think getting the right team of people around you, it's like we all try and focus on our strengths. If you don't have people around you to support you in understanding the business in and out before you make the decision, you could be making a really big mistake.
What are some of the other mistakes that people make?
Many, there are many, and look, in our experience, particularly in my own, I often get the call when the decision has gone wrong. So anything from understanding the market that you're operating in, the customers that you have in the business, the key people, so understanding who the key people are in the business, certainly financial performance and financial performance over a period of time, like understanding that. making sure you understand the trends in the business. Most often my clients who are entrepreneurs are really passionate about wanting to buy a business, but they know to get the right advice or support at the time of making the acquisition and understanding key parts of the business that they don't naturally have experience with. So there are a lot of risks in these businesses. For example, contracts. So what contracts exist with the business? Can those contracts be continued on when the ownership transitions in the business? Who owns the leases? When will the leases expire? How does that impact you? Can you secure the space again? You can imagine, obviously from even our short discussion, how you can find all these little hooks in businesses that you may not otherwise know without the right research and due diligence at the start.
Well, just following on from that then, what does good due diligence look like?
Well, it looks like, I think good due diligence is actually being able to document and have information in your hands that can demonstrate to you that, one, the business has got sound financial performance, that there are good relationships with customers, that you... maybe one of the things we haven't talked about is actually your banking relationship. So have you established your own ability to buy this business, or can you carry over the banking relationship that existed in the business? I think from a legal and a compliance point of view is actually understanding that the company historically is actually up to date. So good due diligence looks like something where you can actually produce records and information that demonstrate this business has actually continued on healthily over a period of time.
You touched on it in one of your earlier answers, but often when people are considering buying a business, the people they speak to have a vested interest in making the business sound better than it really is, like the current owner or the franchisor or whatever.
Yes.
How do you get independent advice?
Well, I think that's where an accountant comes in really handy. Certainly what we do is we're like the middleman in many respects, but I think the key thing is to cut through all of the hype and actually understand what the key attributes are of the business. So
the lesson is make the decision with your head and not your heart.
Absolutely. The worst thing we can do is make an emotional decision about an asset.
Jackie Franco, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.
Well, if you're thinking of buying a franchise or any other business for that matter, the big lesson is do your research. Now, speaking of research, if you'd like us to do some research for you, we'd love to receive your questions on any issue around money and business, and we'll do our best to try to find the answer for you. Our email address is thefinancequarter@your.abc.net.au. And if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover on the program, we'd love to receive them as well. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on The Finance Quarter.